Welcome everyone to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group, I'm the advertising manager, and I get to be your host today. Today we are excited to be sponsored by the National Basketry Organization. If you're interested in any kind of basketry, check out their website. They have wonderful activities going on. There's information about basket weavers, classes, their conference. Go check them out, the National Basketry Organization. As always, we'll take questions for the last 15 minutes of the program today. Please put your questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. Love the chat, keep that coming, but I can't always see those questions if they're in the chat. Today, we are excited to have Corey Alston. Corey is a fifth-generation Sweetgrass Basket Weaver, and he currently runs the family business in Charleston, South Carolina. The Sweetgrass Basket Weaving has been a major part of the Gullah Geechee culture, dating back to the time of enslavement. This coastal art form has been recognized as a South Carolina State Handcraft, and it is best known to be kept alive along the Sweetgrass Basket Makers Highway in South Carolina. The skill is one of the rare arts of our country and is found nowhere else in America. Gullah Sweetgrass Baskets are a national treasure, and I think after today you'll agree, so is Corey. Hi, Corey. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everyone. How y'all?
You're a man busy.
Yes.
Good.
Thanks for having
That's
me.
wonderful.
Thanks for having me. We're going to have some fun and hopefully there's some great questions at the end. I want to make sure I help people understand what makes my culture and heritage such a blessing to be a part of. And if you haven't been to the coast of Carolina, hopefully it makes you want to come.
Absolutely. Well, let's start off with, what is your favorite tea? And as a good Southerner, I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, I'm a true Southerner. I drink a lot of pure leaf. Matter of fact, I even have I drink the extra sweet, and that's the Southern way to enjoy it. And so sometimes I've heard people say that real sweet tea is the water of the South. And I think it also has to do something with our Southern hospitality, our personality, drinking such a great drink. I put that sweet tea up against anything.
Yes. That's right. So would you talk a little bit about how you personally got started in baskets? And I'm sure it began with your family.
Yeah, so I am a sixth generational Mount Pleasant native. And so my family has been, well, let me give you a little backstory on that. As we were brought into the low country of Carolina during days of enslavement, the lifestyle, traditions, and ways of living has been kept on as long as we can keep track. And so with the enslaved people being brought into the Carolinas, there's a lot of unreal certainty of how long a family could have been into one place, because there's not a real good paper trail of the enslaved. And so as the enslaved were considered more of a property or just a working tool, wasn't a whole lot of documents on how long they may have lived in that one area. And so as Charleston was discovered in 1670, I only can go back 6 generations within my family to be a Mount Pleasant native. Anything beyond 6 generations, I couldn't tell you where they're from, but 6 generations, they say a generation runs about 25 years. And so for about 150 years back, my family has been natives here in the Mount Pleasant area. It's off of the Charleston County. It's a town in the Charleston County off of Highway 17. If you ever been in this area, 17 is what connects you from Charleston to Myrtle Beach or from Charleston to Savannah. As far as a basket maker, I learned the skill actually from a girlfriend when I was a teenager. And so I'm a Gullah man based off of bloodline. Within Gullah heritages, we have food and language and religion and art forms and hunting skills and fishing skills and planting seed skills. And with all that being said, there's also different trades of the enslaved that we're required to do as well. My family generationally were brick masons. And so I grew up in a little community of Mount Pleasant that was about 5 minutes from the community from where my girlfriend dated. Her family also was a Gullah family. Her family was enslaved on a Boone Hall plantation, and mine was more enslaved off of the Long Point Road by the Ports Authority. And so when we were dating, we had a lot of similarities because we're cultural people based off of our ancestry. We knew each other in school. Her family had something that my family didn't, even though we were 5 minutes away. And what her family did was make sweetgrass baskets. And so as we started dating, she showed me how to do this. It's around the age of 17, 18. And as I went around to her family for different gatherings and cookouts, her grandmother, the matriarch of the family of that time, recognized me as little boy Corey. Little boy Corey done grew up and he's dating my granddaughter. I never forget it. And as I kept on dating her granddaughter, the family never gave any pushback on me being a basket maker with the family because I was heritage correct. I didn't move in from Connecticut. I did not just all of a sudden, say I want to pick up this African art form. I was heritage correct, and so it was not a problem. Moving forward, I've now been married to that girlfriend for 22 years, and the family has kind of willed me into the business, and now I'm running the family business now. And so I represent up to 6 to 7 basket makers of the family at one time, based off of who's doing the artwork. And that's how grandma did it. Mary Jane Mattigoat, a very well-known Sweetgrass basket maker, one of the first ever to be represented on the levels of the Smithsonian. She actually had the Heritage Award, the MacArthur Heritage Award. She also received some other awards. We have a picture of her next to Ronald Reagan, presenting her Sweetgrass basket that now lives in the Smithsonian as a permanent installation. And so I'm a student to my in-laws, and so I would never word it any other way because I always want to show respect to where I received the skill, the know-how, the basics. And within that 20-something odd years, I actually carved out my own name of basket weaving on different levels of pieces that I've woven.
Well, could you talk to us a little bit about Sweetgrass? What is it? What makes it so conducive to basketry? And is it just in like the Charleston area, Mount Pleasant area?
So as the enslaved were brought into the Carolinas, they found a similar grass that was used on the west coast of Africa because the soils are not exactly the same, but they're very similar on the west coast of Africa as it is on the east coast of Carolina. This similar grass right here is what they called sweetgrass, and they called it that because of the smell. On the west coast of Africa, it would not have had a sweet aroma. And so as we speak about where in the world can you get a sweetgrass basket, I'm gonna say nowhere else in the world other than Charleston County, I'm sorry, other than the Gullah Geechee Heritage Corridor. Let me say that the right way. And the reason why I word it that way is because you can find sweetgrass where there's warm climate and there's salt water. You will find basket makers up and down the corridor that harvests grass, then dry the grass. There's a little area around Sapelo. They still keep the art alive around Sapelo, Georgia. We are here in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. You'll see some people on the James Island, Johns Island, Edisto. They still keep basketry alive. But most of those basket makers have a strong connection to those Mount Pleasanters. And so it's just the way that the Mount Pleasant has just been credited for keeping it alive. It's not to say it's never been done nowhere else. It's to say that town has kept it alive the longest. Right here, you're going to see that I'm actually harvesting the grass. That harvesting is something that we do behind the scenes. Most people don't know about it or don't realize that we're actually doing a job before the job. And so as I harvest this grass, then I pull it. And after I pull it, then I lay it to sun dry. As far as the smell for those in this chat that have a sweetgrass basket, the smell will get even stronger if you wet it down with tap water once to twice a year. And the reason is because you're rehydrating the moisture in it where it's needed. And so that smell gets a little stronger. And then sweetgrass will be the main material, but it's not the main material. It's one of them. It's not the main. It is the main, but it's not the only. I should say it that way. I'm sorry. There are three other materials that take up to make a sweetgrass basket, and that would be more like the palmetto, the state tree of South Carolina. Pine needle gives red coloring, and bulrush gives darker brown coloring. And we gather and harvest all of those grasses so that we can use them.
Well, Mandy, if you can go to the next slide, it will show the different samples. Oh, sorry, I guess it wasn't the next slide. We have samples of these plants being woven, because there it is. They have naturally different colors too, right?
Yes, ma'am, they do. And so everything has its own texture, everything has its own color, and everything also goes through a drying process. Once we harvest.
That's what's on the other side here, right? You're drying it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So that grass that's laying in my yard is going through a drying process. What we're doing is pulling the moisture or pulling the water out of the material, doing all of that way before I can even sit down for 10 to 12 hours daily to make a sweetgrass basket. And so this is a process that the whole family gets involved in. Not just one person does all this work, makes all the baskets, and then no, everyone does it. And this is a big part of the Gullah heritage by keeping us alive, by making sure we have enough material to sustain us over the winter months. We do not harvest this in the winter. We gather this in between the months of, I'm gonna say, holidays. So we gather in between the holidays of Memorial Weekend and Labor Day weekend. If we can go a little further after Labor Day weekend, we will try to continue to pull as long as that seed doesn't come about, because once the seed starts to bloom is then when the grass changes its texture.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. So one of the things about the sweetgrass basket, and I think some behind you will show this also, but is that and I think you explained this to me, and if I'm saying this wrong, I apologize, that when the Africans came over here, when they were brought over for their understanding of rice, planting rice, growing rice. So the baskets were a result of being able to they needed to throw the plant up in the air, right? And that's how you get the rice out of the plant? So
that's how you get the rice out of the shaft.
Shaft, thank you. Yeah.
So shaft would be like a peanut skin. So if you're eating a dry roasted peanut and there's a red skin on that peanut, that would be considered a husk or a shaft. And so the original enslaved that were brought into the Carolinas of the 1670 were not directly from Africa. That African voyage, though, that African route from Africa to Charleston didn't start until about 1685, 1687. As those original enslaved people were brought into the Carolinas, they were coming from the island of Barbados, as Barbados became a overflowed island. And so as it was an overflowed island, King Charles, he had some kind of connection with this land here. So then he brought the people into Charlestown Landing. And that was some of the first areas that Charleston was even discovered. For anyone that even knows what I'm talking about, it's now a state recreational county park kind of thing. You can go there and have a picnic or so on and so forth. But that was one of the original landing locations by Europeans, bringing enslaved people with them. It's coming from Barbados. They realized that the crops that were Barbadians were growing was not going to make them as plentiful or as rich as they wanted to be. So they knew that there was a thriving group of people on the west coast of Africa, known as the Rice Coast. Then they started to enslave those people. So no longer taking enslaved people from Africa to Charleston, they're now taking them from, no longer taking people from Barbados to Charleston. Now they're going straight from Africa to Charleston. And that's what made Charleston the largest slave port of America, is because that direct commute from Charleston to Africa, from Charleston to Africa, bringing those people that had rice skills. And so as they were enslaved, they made them make those. They used the flooding of the ponds and flooding of the lakes and using the coastal tides as what made a substance known as Carolina gold. That Carolina gold is then what made Charleston the richest city of America for the 16 and the 1700s. And all of that is off the back of the enslaved. And so with that free labor, yeah, you can become super rich by not paying your workforce, proper wages. Yeah.
So when we're sitting here working, but we also have some images of you working. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is designing. Now this basket on the left, now that is a fanning basket, correct?
Correct. That's a rice
fanner. Can you
fanner.
explain what a fanning basket is?
So in my culture, it's going to be known as a thrashing basket for raw rice. In many other ethnic cultures, it'll be a winnowing basket for seed pod, coffee, beans, rice, gold. I mean, whatever those people were winnowing or shaking to move a covering off or panning for something is when you use a winnowing style basket. And so my heritage would have been enslaved because of this tool known as the rice fanner. And then the traditional size of the fanner would have been between the measurements of, say, like 18 to 24 inches. Anything bigger than 18 to 24 inches would have made it very hard for a person to be able to maneuver with 5-6 pounds of rice. So the picture here on the right-hand side would have been more on the wall, would have been more what we call today an ornamental piece. This piece that I wove for a client was actually 36 inches. And being something that large with 4 or 5 pounds of rice on it would have been a bit much to try to handle. So then that's what we call larger than it should be, or what we call ornamental. And so, yes, we can make them as large as you like, based off of the requests. But this here pattern is the most traditional. The one that I'm holding in my hand to give you all an idea of time, I can get something like that done right about 21, 22 hours and 22 days in that piece. And that large 36-inch piece, I'm working on one now. And the last time I did one was right about 47 or 48 days on that piece. And so what happens for any basket makers in this chat, I don't have to explain to you, but for those that don't know, every time I go around the basket, it gets harder to get around it the second time, the third time, row 30, row 60, row 100. And so after a while, I'm starting to take one full day to get around the piece, and that's because of how large it is.
That makes sense. That makes sense. So when you're making the basket, do you already have a design in mind, or are you designing as you go?
Both.
Okay.
So the only time that I have a design in mind is if you say, Corey, I want that basket to be 14 inches wide. I want it to be 14 inches wide. I want you to drop 7 elephant ears on it, is what we call this design.
Oh, okay.
It's called the elephant ear pattern. And so something like this, I would make it to the liking of the family if they say what they want specifically. I've been blessed in my career that a lot of the people that commission extremely large pieces are giving me my creative ability. And as they give me my creative ability, then it allows me to be an artist, allows me to, do what I want to do, because it doesn't take my my artistic flow away. I don't have to keep pulling a measuring tape out. I can just go at it and make something, that I think is beautiful. And most of the time, I try to do those custom pieces as a one of. I don't really want to do multiples of the custom pieces because sometimes I have to sit back and look at like, wow, how in the heck did I get that done? You know, like that came out gorgeous, you know. Yeah.
Well, are there like traditional designs versus your own designs when you come to basket making?
Yes. So traditionally would be based on baskets of simplicity. So
Mm.
the simpler the design, if you can see right behind my head here, I have one of the oldest designs right here behind me. Or this is a great shot right here that just came up. Traditional is going to be that rice fanner basket that does not have any braided edge. That's just a plain get it done basket. Based on the simplicity of that fanner, that's going to be an older design. Out of everything you see, all 5 of these baskets, that rice fanner with a plain edge will be considered traditional. Then the larger rice fanner behind it, by putting that braid on it, does not make it any more functional of that time of enslavement. That's based on a working tool. So then that would not have been done. Then the pictures over here to the right, these 2 big guys are sitting up next to each other. This will be 100% contemporary. And the reason why is because I made them more for the beauty of, more for the enjoyment of what I can make this grass do. And so these 2 pieces, they're very large. For those that really can't tell, this is in a, I was in an office, nope, that's like a, I was in a mailing room. I can't even think of the name of the mailing room, like a FedEx. I was in a FedEx about to ship these out to California. And so these are sitting up on their desks, like right after they did the weight. Then they're about to take the measurements. They both range right about 36 inches tall, and they're right around 27 to 28 inches wide. So this went out for one Pacific client, and now these are in the Sacramento area. This shot that I photographed of my work on that dirt road, I photographed that in Boone Hall, and that also became another business endeavor of mine known as Gullah Woven Photos. I started collaborating my artwork with backgrounds of the South, and then that became a print company. So I sell my prints of baskets all over the low country. It allows me to more tell the stories of the South and also show the beauty of the baskets, because I've always felt like once you put something in it, you kind of hide that beauty, because they are meant to be working tools. And so one way to enjoy the beauty of a basket is having it in a photography blend with backgrounds of the South. But yeah, that's one of my other endeavors is Sweetgrass photography.
That is a beautiful combination.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, are those, I know people are going to ask, so I'll just go ahead and ask it now. Are those available on your website?
No,
Okay.
nothing is available on the website. The website is 100% educational tool. So
Okay.
you can understand what Gullah people are, how they've kept things alive, how they have been, brought into the Carolinas, lifestyles after days of enslavement. The website is 100% learning tool. And it also tells everything else that I may offer. As far as the buying online, you can call, text, Instagram, or Facebook me, Corey, what do you have available for immediate shipping? I did have a website, but I turned it off because I couldn't keep up. And so when people order 15 of these and need them in 2 days, we're in a buy now world. And so by being in a buy now world, we just feel like we can buy everything that way, but handcrafted artwork cannot work that way. So in 2006, I shut that site down, and then I only would ship out what's already made. So if anyone wants a Sweetgrass basket, inbox me photos of inventory that's available now, and I will send you an inventory of 60 to 100 baskets that my family and I have woven. And so then I'll ship that to you based off of what's already made. If you want to have a custom piece, then you and I would discuss budget, you and I would discuss time frame, and we would discuss measurements.
Well, I am amazed at the size of these baskets. They are just huge. And
Thank
we
you.
saw at the beginning of you holding two of those and how extremely large those are. So I'm curious, when it comes to designing, do you design the bigger baskets differently? You know, do you have to start out in a different way as opposed to something smaller or the more traditional baskets?
I
Now,
guess
this
the
is from a
best way.
non-basket person, so I apologize if the question's stupid.
No, it's not a bad question at all. I start out with a base. And so the base will give me that foundation of how big it will be. This piece here in the screen or in the monitor had a 22-inch base. So this was a piece that was commissioned by a traveling museum. And they just wanted a Corey piece, but they wanted me to challenge myself was the job. And so challenge myself on something that's never been done and something that you would probably never want to do again. It was kind of like the instructions. And so this piece here took me 8 months to fabricate. If it's possible, can we go to me holding both of those at one time so we can really see the size of that in the picture? There we go. Thank you so much. So those, if you look at the bottom of that basket that's on your right, you'll see that the bottom can still be visible. That's about a 22-inch bottom. So for anyone that's thinking on measurements, that's about a little bit shy of 2 feet on the bottom itself. Then I brought it up and did everything, that God allowed me to do. My wife even fussed at me making that basket because she says, so let's see, can we put a camera on me? Can we put the camera on me? I want to show everybody what I'm talking about. Okay, so right here is the one that I'm working on. We're supposed to have one row at one time running a basket. It's known as coiled weaving. So we stick that tool in there, then I take the palm and I thread through that hole that it came out of, one row. That basket that we just took the picture off of, I had 7 rows moving at one time. And so I've never did it before. And my wife thought I done lost my mind. She says, you done come that far, now you're gonna mess up that basket. And I didn't know what to say, honestly. I just listened to her statement and thought, I don't know why I'm doing 7 rows. I have no idea what's going on. Long story short, if you can go back to that black and white of that basket, there you go, perfect. That 7 rows was me working that handle all at one time. I worked that handle 7 rows at a time over, 7 rows under that loop, and then I came back up and ended all 7 rows off, and I've never did that before. So she looked at it like, wow, what did you create? You know what I mean? And not to get really into religion, but Gullah people are highly religious. And I laid all that on God. I said, God must have guided my hands to do something that I've never done, because I'm supposed to be doing 1 row at a time. To have 7 rows running in the same time, in the same movement, to complete a piece to look like this, I give him all the praise.
But the question is, would you do it again?
I would.
Yeah.
This took 8 months for this one piece.
Wow.
And then the other piece, I have right around 4 months in that one. So I call these pieces, this is Big Mama, and the other one is Papa. And so Papa and Big Mama is the names of these 2 baskets. And they're also the figures of Gullah people, based off of having a Big Mama in the family and having a Papa. Papa was working. He was very, very, staying busy, staying active. Then we have a Big Mama. A Big Mama in cultural significance would be more a person that wears many, many hats. So that's why I want a Big Mama to be so over the top. She has curves that Papa doesn't have. She has so many different runs because she's a mother. She's a provider. She's a mother, a provider. She keeps the house running. She keeps the kids rolling. She's cooking dinner. She's, she's doing so much, and respectfully, we give her that name, Big Mama, because she's more like a grandmother.
Mm.
She's not the immediate mom of a child. She would be more like a grandmother that keeps everybody together. And Papa was a very distinguished gentleman. And sometimes, in some cases, he's a smaller built guy. And so he's a smaller built guy, and Big Mama, she's more voluptuous, more of a larger woman in some cases, in some families. And so I wanted these baskets to show that. I wanted them to show the Gullah family and how they have so many similarities, but they also have some slight differences based off of they having different identities. So if these two, I'm just thinking about it right now off the cuff, if these two had a child, I would have to put both of these baskets in one design, and that would be mind blowing. And so, if anyone wants to commission a piece of the descendant of Big Mama and Papa, I would love to be commissioned for that piece of artwork, and that would be both baskets in one. So that's my little commercial break on keep me busy, America. Keep me busy. Yes.
Now, when that happens, and I'm sure it's going to be when, we want you to
Yes.
come back and show us the baby. We want to see the baby.
Oh man, I'll be so delighted. And so I've been blessed in my career to have artwork in different museums of America. And I still want to, have I have a want. I have a want. So forgive me for my want, but I would love to be in the MAD, the Museum of Art and Designs of New York. And so if I ever had the opportunity of making a piece and having it donated to MAD to represent Gullah people, that would just make my heritage more known. We are in the Smithsonian as a heritage, but we're not in the MAD. And then we also have some more museums that I did research on that we need to keep this Gullah word alive, because I always feel like the moment we stop understanding a culture or understanding the people that have fought for generations is when we start to forget. We forget. And so the more we can put artwork in different places all over the world, the more they are aware of who did all the fighting or the legwork for those artisans way before myself. And with me being a student to the art, I give all the props to those older weavers that has been doing it before myself.
Well, that kind of leads right into my next question, which is, you're very adamant about keeping the craft going. It's almost like you're a half artist and half promoter of the product, that you
Yes.
want this heritage to continue. So are you continuing it with your family? Is that one way you're going to keep the tradition going?
Yes. So I have two daughters, and I'm very proud of my daughters. They are the sixth generation basket maker. And so when they speak about their family's heritage, I hear in their sound how they're proud of us as well. They're proud that their grandmother, for lack of better words, broke the door down on museums, and she started having artwork placed in museums all over America. Then I hear in their voice that their father, I don't say what I hear, but I do hear their pride in how they speak about what's going on. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she's actually been someone that I've been keeping patted on her butt to keep on. So the posts in the Washington Post did a big article on the next generation. It's something that everyone can look up if you care for it. But the Washington Post did an article that Yasmin and I made front page of Traditions and Generations was the name of that article, or something like that, with Corey Alston and Yasmin Alston. Then I also had Yasmin on a video with Samantha Brown, Places to Love. And so she spoke on her own, on her being the sixth generation and how she's been only knowing her parents as basket makers, and so I have a high school student as well. And I got a feeling that high school student, she may be the next generation that runs the business. She even told me, Dad, I think I want to do it, and so I'm a more motivated. But then also, let's say my next generation below me does not do anything. But let's say I have a grandchild in 10, 15, 20 years, then they would be the ones that I would be able to show the skill set, because within the family's pact, the family's promise is to never teach it out of the bloodline. And so when I came involved 20 some odd years ago, I had to take that understanding, that oath of me not teaching it. And so when I do different Gullah presentations, I only teach how to make a palmetto rose. And that's because that's the fairy tale of that story has nothing to do with Gullah people. And so yes, and that's awesome. Thank you for pulling that up, that Washington Post article. But yeah,
Thank you,
so yes,
Carla.
my daughters are up next to the bat, up next to play ball.
Oh, that's amazing. That's wonderful. And I love it that that part of the world recognizes, like you said, it's a national treasure and it needs to be promoted and taken care of and nurtured. And one of the things I was very surprised about, I haven't been to Charleston in a long time, is that the Sweetgrass Cultural Arts Pavilion in Mount Pleasant. So how did all of that come about?
So that was a awesome push by one of our town councilmen. She's a native. She understood the need, and she was a person of preservation. Miss Thomasina Stokes Marshall, we lost her about a year or so ago, but she was very adamant on preserving, protecting, and teaching. And so this Sweetgrass Pavilion, if you come into Mount Pleasant, there is a basket maker that's there, keeping the art alive. For those that's never been into Mount Pleasant, we actually have some little roadside stands that these baskets were sold on, dating back to the early 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so whenever you can find a basket maker that's actually doing the work, keeping their family legacy alive, please stop and talk to them, because they have a story that needs to be heard. And it's a beautiful story on what generation he or she may be, and how do they learn the art form, and who have they taught to keep it alive. Here at the Sweetgrass Pavilion, this is in the Mount Pleasant side, and this is going to be right under the bridge that goes into Charleston. And so this is a place also where we have a yearly festival. There's a Sweetgrass Basket Festival every July. And that gives the opportunity for basket makers to come out and show their skills on how awesome their work is, and what have they done creatively. I'm a big fan of other basket makers. And so these here behind me, for example, these are part of my personal collection. I collect Sweetgrass baskets. I have a very large inventory of baskets that I've collected. As a fan of the art, I'm gonna do something that I never, ever do, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna see how this works. I'm gonna move my camera without dropping signal. I want you to see above my kitchen cabinets. Let's see, am I doing this right? Oh, so
Wow.
I have my own personal collection of Sweetgrass baskets. I'm in my kitchen, for those that don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I collect the art as a student of the art. I also collect other artisans, because I feel like, it's not about Corey, it's about us keeping this thing alive. And there's been people before me that's been doing it. And most of my collective pieces are artisans that we no longer have with us. So they're definitely prized possessions that I would never, care to sell. It's something that I would then pass down within my family as an heirloom. Oh, good commercial break. Heirlooms. Anyone in this Zoom call that has a Sweetgrass basket, please, please, please take a damp rag and wipe your basket off twice a year. The reason why you want to do that is so it doesn't ever crack and frail and get brittle. One thing that we have to do, Kathy, that people don't ever think about, and I don't mind speaking about it, when you come and order a basket or you have a Sweetgrass basket, these were never, ever designed to be pieces of artwork that you never use. Never was designed for that. They have always been a working tool. So when I meet people in the Charleston City Market, they say, Corey, what am I supposed to do with that? And I'm the one that's going to tell you it should be a bread basket, it should be a fruit bowl, it should be something for keys, chains, jewelry. As you touch it, the oils of your hands keeps it from drying out. And then once a year, then you're going to use a damp rag and wipe it out back and front. Then if it was an occasional bread basket or something you put fruit in, that's going to be a working tool as well. And so every time you touch the basket, it's good for it. There's a ton of families that may have had them and they don't touch them. They don't take them out the curio closet. And if they have them, they tell the families, don't you touch them. And that really, honestly, family tears them up. It really tears them up because they're drying out. They need oils from foods and hands. And then you need to be hitting them with a damp rag so that they don't get dry or brittle and start to crack. And if someone doesn't mind, put my information in the bottom of the chat because I do repair a lot of baskets. And so if you have heirlooms that you have collected from your mom, your grandma, someone else's wedding, you purchased them yourselves over the years, please reach out to me because I can mend them to make them look brand new again, because it's not the same to keep replacing an heirloom. You want to keep that heirloom because it meant something to you. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody commented that you're talking to fiber people, and it's the same thing. It's like, we don't like it when we make something and we give it to someone and they won't use it. It's like, it's a rug, use it. It's a scarf, it's a towel, use it. So we all agree with that. Well,
Yes,
I have to
yes.
ask you, what's next for you?
Well, what's next for me would be, I've gotten more into public speaking, and it has been a blessing that I'm able to now travel and go and tell people about how proud my heritage is. I do a presentation by PowerPoint. I've also have been doing some diversity inclusion Zoom calls. So that's corporate groups, or I was really active on a Pennsylvania circuit of libraries. And I would talk from one library to the next library on the Gullah heritage. And that was in a Zoom call for more diversity and inclusion. And for those people that wanting to know more about cultures of America, and for anyone in the Zoom call here, something I heard that I thought was fascinating. 1 in 5 of every Afro-American has a descendant that was an enslaved African that was brought through the city of Charleston. I thought that was a very interesting fact that showed just how many people were actually enslaved and where they came through, and how the new International Afro-American Museum, being the largest area of the people coming into the Charleston area, I just thought that was very interesting how that 1 in 5. Here in this left picture is what I've been doing a lot in the evenings, and I do this with travel. So what I'm doing is a full Gullah presentation. And in this presentation, it's a PowerPoint on things that so people can learn what makes my culture unique. There's also a large visual of Sweetgrass Baskets. There's question and answer. And then there's a palmetto rose making at the end. Ooh. Then there's going to be also, for those that book it, a taste of the culture. And so then that's when I provide at the end of this presentation a Gullah dish that represents our heritage and culture well, and it's called the Frogmore Stew. And so that's a dish that was meant to feed the group of nieces, nephews, cousins, grandparents, children. And so that's for those that don't know what that is. It's a low country boil on steroids. It's the best way to describe it. And I cook this dish. I've been making it since I've been a kid, learning it from my father. And now I make it for those that book me for this event. So I would say more for me will be more public speaking. I was blessed on March the 3rd to be one of the panelists at the Smithsonian. So the American Art Museum had a panelist of speakers, and my topic was, what do you learn from a Sweetgrass basket? That was a blessing. And then I've been speaking all over America based off of who books me. I travel, bring artwork, and then I have a PowerPoint that also gives that full visual. And right here at the top of this picture on the where I have the jacket on sitting down in that Zoom call, that's a palmetto leaf. And so in those presentations, we all make a rose made out of palmetto as well.
Well, of course, we have a ton of questions, and let me tell you all ahead of time, we won't get to all of them, but we'll get to as many as we can. So you ready for questions, Corey?
Let's do it. Let's do
All
it. We're
right.
having fun. Let's do
All
it.
right. First of all, where can people find you in Charleston? We've got people who live close, or let me tell you, if y'all have never been to Charleston, go. It is wonderful. Where can people find you in Charleston?
So I'm in the front of the Charleston City Market. The way you can tell the front of the market is by coming through on the Meeting Street side. So to give you a visual for those that's been there, I'm in the building that has the museum above the top. And so, and that's the best way to find me. If you're coming into the area, inbox me, because if you're coming to necessarily just see Corey or get some history from Corey or get a Sweetgrass basket from Corey, inbox me to make sure I'm there, because I've been doing a lot of public speaking. And so some days I may not be in the market, but if you're coming down that way and you wouldn't mind laughing and joking with me a little bit, just inbox me, because I've been doing a lot in schools, teaching the children the history of the enslaved and the people that were brought from that West Coast of Africa that has now been thriving in the coast of Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. And so it's been a fun endeavor of me becoming more of an educational tool, and not just a physical basket maker.
If you go to Charleston and you just say, where's the city market, you will get directed there. It is kind of the main central location for tourists in Charleston. So I encourage you all, if you're near there, go. The same woman, Kimberly McManus, wants to know, she said she lives near Tupelo. Where can she find baskets around there?
You said where at now?
In Georgia?
So yes, there are baskets on Sapelo.
Sapelo, sorry, I pronounced it wrong. So
Sapelo Island.
So if the same thing, they're on the side of the road selling the baskets, or
no, the Sapelo vendors, they'd be more like in a market.
Okay.
You also find some basket makers. Well, no, that's Hilton Head, that's South Carolina. I don't know the times that those artisans are in that farmers market, but they are basket makers of Sapelo. And don't know anything else about their timing or what have you. But once you do that research, and if you're not able to find them and you don't want to come to Charleston, just inbox me and I'll ship you whatever you like.
Okay. Are there books? This is from Terry Shoemaker. Are there any books available that cover the Gullah culture and Sweetgrass that you know of?
I was reading that question about Sapelo. Say that again, please.
Are there books about Gullah culture and the Sweetgrass baskets?
Yes, they are. So you have the Row Upon Row. That's a book about Sweetgrass weaving. You can find it on Amazon. A children's book, but it's not like, it's such a great book that I use it in my presentations, called Circle Unbroken. And then you have a grassroots book on Sweetgrass, as far as where it came from, how it was brought into the Americas, and how it's kept alive. So there's about 3 or 4 publications that I can think of just on the Sweetgrass itself. But then you find other books on Gullah culture as well, and those would be definitely easy to find. The word Gullah isn't a small word. If you was to Google it, you'll find a lot about it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Terry Shoemaker also wants to know, do you keep the Sweetgrass wet while you're working on it?
No, I lay it in the sun early. I showed that picture, and I leave it completely dry.
Okay.
And it's completely dry just so we can weave it. And so you see it there in my bin. There's no water in my bin.
Okay.
And what we're doing is laying that material out to dry out. Once it's woven, it's nothing wrong with wiping it with a damp rag. But it's completely dry to pull all water out of it.
Now, what you just showed us, is that all Sweetgrass, or is that other things too?
That was other things as well. I'll go back and do that again.
Can you show us which is which? People are asking.
Yes, I'd be happy to.
That'd be great.
All right, so So this is sweetgrass. It's the lighter grass, has a sweeter aroma. Over here, this darker brown. This is bulrush. This is the biblical grass baby Moses is found in. This here is the threading known as palmetto. Palmetto is going to be the threading. You see it better now. I spliced that down into threads to the size that I need. And then we also use a red material that's known as pine needle. So for those basket makers, sweetgrass baskets are also used by the long leaf pine needle, just like in some of the basket makers that that knows about making pine needle baskets. I'm trying to see if I can find one for you. But yeah, we use a pine needle is about a foot long. It's a very it's a species of pine trees here. We don't use the loblolly; it just aggravates us. So we try to use the longer ones so we can have more of a easier weave.
Sally Brock wants to know, and I just want to clarify, you were saying, and when you take care of the basket, you just wipe it, you don't soak it, or does it matter?
All right, so if there are any sweetgrass basket makers in this Zoom call, Corey said it a little different, okay? And so y'all can hang me from a wet noodle and beat me up. I'm cool with it. But in my years of repairing baskets, the soak basket tears them up. It makes more stitches pop. And the reason why that happens is because if you can visualize submerging this in water, this is all a natural material, there's no synthetics, there's no plastics or nothing in it. If you soak it in water, what happens? It swells like a canoe. Once it swells like a canoe, it could be a loose spot or a piece in it that's not as tight as the piece next to it. Then you have a new pop. And so my suggestion would be take a damp rag, wipe it off back and front. By doing that, gives enough moisture into the palmetto so that it doesn't get brittle. And so by you soaking it in water, dipping it in water, running it under your sprinkler or putting it outside and water hosing it, it could swell and you can have new popped areas. And so my mom and grandma would tell you totally different, and I respect them for that. But I also realized that if you do all that, then you could pop a stitch that wasn't popped originally because the basket would get a half size larger because it's full of water. So I recommend, family, use a damp rag. It's good enough.
There you go. Now you have it. That makes good sense. We've had someone asking about, you talked about Mary Jane, who's in the Smithsonian, I think.
Mary Jane Manigault. Yes, ma'am.
How do you spell that last name, if you don't mind?
Manigault. Manigault.
Okay. All right. Okay, somebody, I think we're typing up an answer for that. Thank you. Yeah,
she's you can actually Google her name. She's one of the matriarchs that helped, kick some doors down for us. She received the 1984.
Oh, okay.
1984 Heritage Award. Yes, ma'am.
One thing I was curious about is that when you're working, you talk about doing hours working on the baskets. Are you doing that at the Charleston Market?
Yes, I weave every day when I'm at the market.
Okay, and that's where you get most of the weaving done.
Correct. Maybe not most of it.
Oh, really?
I get 8 hours done there, but it's not really an all 8 hour shift of weaving because I'm doing question and answer. I'm hoping to sell a piece, so I'm stopping to bag something. I get a lot of work done here at home, and with no distractions. I listen to music when I weave. I can't watch TV. I get distracted. So my family be in bed 10:30 p.m. I'll be up from 10:30 p.m. sometimes to 2 in the morning. And that's just me as a basket maker, and realizing they pick at me. So just to let y'all know, I'm considered a very slow basket maker. I'm not fast. I'm very slow, and my slow speed, I have accepted it. I have accepted to be a slow weaver. And now that means I put a little more time in it now, because if I have a deadline for a client, then I want to make sure I meet their deadline. So that may mean I may stay up a little longer to meet the deadline. If it was my wife, Karen, for example, she sews circles around me. But once again, I've accepted the idea that I'm not fast. I'm the tortoise. I just want to get to the finish line. You know, I don't have to get there first. Yeah.
Well, the work's beautiful. Even
Really
though
appreciate
no matter
y'all.
how fast or slow, the work is beautiful.
Thank you.
Eugenia Gwaltney wants to know, the basket went to Sacramento. Is it a museum or a private collection?
That was a private collector.
Okay. She
It
lives in
actually
Sacramento, so she was like hoping she could
it's
see
actually,
this.
yeah, it's actually at a mega church, from my understanding.
Really?
Once the church received it, they put them in glass cases. Um, Pastor, oh boy, give me a second. Pastor Lovelace is his name.
All right.
And so Pastor Lovelace, he commissioned the pieces. He has a large Sweetgrass basket collection in that church. And so I was blessed to be one of his featured artists of the church.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, Corey, this has been wonderful and so educational. I thought I knew about Sweetgrass baskets. I don't know anything. This has been wonderful. And I think the audience has just loved hearing about your work and hearing about you. Thank you so much for being on here today.
Thank y'all for having me. Thanks for putting up with my inconsistent emails and texts, but I told you I got you. I said I got you. It's been real busy.
Oh, you were great. You were fine.
Yeah,
You're a busy man.
Got you. Yeah,
You're
well,
a busy man.
But I also wanted to make time to make sure this came out great. And thanks to you and Mandy and Miss Elizabeth and you know, y'all made all this come together. Thank y'all for having me. And thanks for letting me speak to over 300 people on my proud heritage known as Gullah Geechee. Thank y'all.
And I'd encourage you all, again, if you're thinking about where do you want to travel sometime, put Charleston and Pleasant Hill on your travel. It's wonderful to go to Charleston, and you can go to the market, and there Corey will be. Yes, I do want to thank, here is his website for the gullahculture.com. And like he said, it is an educational website. You will see so much information, see the beautiful baskets, learn a lot about where they came from, how they're made. And again, it's very, very educational. I encourage you to go check out that website. And I want to thank our sponsor today, the National Basketry Organization. What a perfect sponsor for this show. Thank you so much for making this presentation possible. We appreciate your sponsorship, and we love it that our basketry people are so excited to see these programs. If you want to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, your business, your guild, please go to our website and go to the Textiles and Tea page and buy your sponsorship there. Some people have been using the donation tab. You don't want to do that. You want to go to Textiles and Tea sponsorship to do your sponsorship for an episode. And we encourage you to do that. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We'll be glad to help you with that too. Spinning and Weaving Week. Can you believe it? It is next week. Next week. And we are so excited. Every year it gets bigger and better. We have over 60 virtual events in 7 days. It's amazing. We've got vendor booths. We've got 26 thread talks. We've got 5 panels, 1 fashion show, and it's like a show and tell. Don't think you have to have the runway to make this work. Let's see those dish towels. Last year or year before last, we had shoes. Those were great. We want to see those blankets, scarves, hats. Big show and tell. Come join us. We've got 36 art sparks of every kind of topic you can think of. We've got 4 juror talks, 6 virtual studios. Actually, it's 7. I think somebody else signed up today. 7 Marketplace Live. And all of this is for $25 in that whole week. It's amazing. It's a great deal. Come join us. If you want to take an Art Sparks class, there's an additional cost of $10 to $20, depending on the length of the class. And all of it, this is the best part, all of it's recorded. I know you work for a living, so do I. It's all recorded. You can watch it for 90 days afterwards. So jump in there, register, sign up for your Art Sparks that you want to attend, and we look forward to seeing you next week for Spinning and Weaving Week. If you have any questions, let us know. Go to our website, all kinds of information there. We want to thank everybody who supports HGA, either by giving a donation to the Fiber Trust or by your membership. All these programs, Spinning and Weaving Week, Textiles and Tea, Career in Textiles, all of those happen through your support, either through the through Fiber Trust or through your membership. So please go online to weavespindye.org, join or donate to the Fiber Trust. We do appreciate your support. If you missed any of the episodes, and you probably want to watch this one again, it was fabulous just to see those gorgeous baskets. You can do so at the HGA Facebook, or later you'll be able to see it on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed to YouTube, I encourage you to do that, because when you do, you'll get a notice when one has been uploaded. So 2 options there to watch this all again. We are so excited you joined us today. It was a wonderful program. I hope you have a great week. Next Tuesday, we have Barbara Walker, Barbara J. Walker. There's a couple of them. We have Barbara J. Walker. So we hope you'll join us next week. Have a great week and happy tea.